Mate, what is with all these NRL fantasy podcasts? They all sound the fucking same. Welcome to the echo chamber.
Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to another week of the NRL Fantasy Echo Chamber. I'm Jay-Z, and I'm joined here tonight by everyone's favourite overdramatic Kiwi, Eddy. Kia ora, cuz. How'd you go in round 4?
You just call me overdramatic, you cunt.
Go on.
Sorry, I think I just proved your point there. No, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I didn't actually really watch any NRL in the weekend. I've just had a nice little holiday away with the family. It's good.
So does that mean your team's doing shit?
It's not doing good. I went up about another 3,500 ranks, but I'm still just outside the top 10k. So yeah, I'm up to fuck all, really.
That's mad. That's almost a PB for you. And
yeah, bro, it ain't 2023 anymore.
Yeah, I'm figuring out it's not 2024 myself. Also joining us, special guest from JBFA, we have Mitch joining us. His debut on the pod. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good to be here, boys. Yeah, making the debut. Recently on Jamie's podcast and YouTube for a few months, and now I'm here. So making my name in the community, I guess, which is really exciting, and I'm having a ton of fun doing it, bro. So yeah.
Amazing, bro. You're
mate.
killing
Fuck it in there.
Sweet as. All right, let's get into it, boys. Round 4, what trades did we make and how did they go? Eddy, kick us off.
I brought in JC. What shit cunt did I trade out? Might have been Yongi or some shit like that. But yeah, I brought in JC, and I was stoked with him. Probably should have made a second trade. I should have ditched old mate fucking... not Hopgood, the guy from the...
Gilbert?
Oh, yes, Gilbert. I don't know why I blanked on his name.
It's a good start, Eddy.
No, fucking had too big of a cone beforehand. But yeah, no, I'm getting rid of Gilbert this week, though, so I'll make up for that now.
Yeah, sweet. Mitch, what did you do this week? Any trades?
Yeah, bro. I actually saved 2 trades in round 1. I didn't trade, and then the round after that, I only did the one with Duffy to Stafford Tower. So I actually used 2, and I traded out Luke Metcalf and Connor Watson for Payne Haas and Katoga from the Eels, which it really put me in a pretty difficult position because I wanted to get Haas, and I already accepted the fact that I made a mistake by not starting with him. And I think his stat line and the way he plays is something he can continue to do. So I pulled the trigger, and Watson was the trade bait, which sucks. And yeah, Luke Metcalf was a dud, so I traded him out. I was trading him out this week anyway, so his score was sort of irrelevant to me anyway. So.
Yeah, I think in the long term, those trades are probably going to pay off. I think Payne Haas, it's weird to say 67's a quiet game, but, well down on offloads, I think probably due to the weather more than anything else. That his base is still there, his minutes are going crazy, and Metcalf's a bit of a spud. I think most people have jumped off him by now. And how'd you go for the week, mate?
Yeah, I scored 902 points, which is not great. I'm not too happy with it. I know a lot of people scored mid 900s, and a lot of screenshots I'm seeing of people with really good scores. Jaden Campbell, who I don't own, and Nafahu White. It's been going nuclear, which I also don't own. So yeah, it's been pretty tough. 900, I'm not too happy with it, but I have saved 3 trades, so I'm going to start launching pretty soon, and I'm pretty excited to make some moves, I think.
Yeah, man.
It sucks not owning White.
It really does. He was in my team for so much of that preseason.
Yeah, me too. It's horrible. And I just didn't expect this as well. Even Tua Wong to a lesser degree, missing out on him. I think him and White are going to be the 2 big ones where I just go, how did I miss out on these guys? Because such a big advantage to those who actually own him, especially White. He's killing it.
Yeah. Growing up, my parents always told me not to join the White Power gang, but fuck, what do they know?
It rudely approves of that message, I think. Shout out to a resident ranger.
That's what rudely started calling the white owners. I think it's a pretty good name, actually.
Yeah, well, to be determined on that one. I think the jury's still out, but let's crack into it.
It's better written. It looks more like written than spoken, I suppose. Because the spelling doesn't convey over when you say it, does it?
No, it's certainly a bit rogue to say. I don't know if we would call this on air, but on a podcast. Anyway, enough of that. We'll talk about him again when we get to the Roosters. Let's crack into it. Thursday game down in Canberra. We have the Raiders playing Cronulla. Some danger signs for Canberra recently. They had a real stinker against the Cowboys. Any fantasy blokes that you had that you're ready to throw off a cliff?
From the Canberra game?
Yeah.
I don't know. Tamale's fucking going good as, so we'll keep holding him. But I don't even have any Sharks players, so nah.
Yeah. No, me neither.
I've
I
got
don't
Horse.
actually
I got
own.
Horse too, but
I actually
he can
don't
stay.
own any other Raiders players besides Tamale. I actually didn't start with Horse, and I just didn't have like the right chance to bring him in, which sucks. Like I did want him, but just I didn't start with him. And then round 2, I didn't have any like glaring trades. Like I kind of flirted with the idea of trading Fish to Horse, but that just seemed sideways. So I just didn't do it, obviously. And yeah, I just haven't had the chance to bring him in. I haven't had any injuries or like failed mid ranges, so I just had to fade Horse, which kind of sucks. But yeah, it's been pretty tough watching without him.
Yeah, he's had a couple of, like, not stinkers, because he's still scored pretty well the last 2 weeks, but, I mean, he's really dropped off. Like, he's visibly played a bit worse than those first 2 rounds where he slapped the Broncos pack around in round 2, and now he's sort of struggling against Manly and the Cowboys pack, 2 of the weaker packs in the competition, you'd probably say. But, yeah, Fisher Harris is plodding along nicely. Either of you get on Matty Nicholson?
No, I didn't.
I skipped him.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, nice. Tom Starling, if you still owned him, when would you consider trading him?
Is his break even lower or higher than his average?
It's lower. He's averaging 48. His break even's about 33, give or take.
Then I'd keep holding him until it goes the other way and he's at threat of losing money. Otherwise, I'd just keep chugging along.
I think too, he's been pretty unlucky the last 2 weeks just in beaten packs. Like that Manly game with the Horse, when Horse got sin binned, he just got dominated. I think he made like 38 tackles by half time. So Ricky would obviously just pull him off early, and it's probably not helping that Owen Paddy's been killing it. Like anytime he comes on, he looks like he's unreal. So I think that minute split will probably Owen will start getting more minutes sooner rather than later. But Starling, if I owned a pretty easy hold. He's still averaging close to 50, and it can only go up from here. I think 2 minutes wise with the harder games coming up.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of weeks if he maxes out, you could switch him over to Grant or something like that. But yeah, just worry about that one later, eh?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think like the real question here, and probably not for this week, is when Hosking comes back into this side, do you see him as a middle or an edge forward? Because I'm kind of leaning towards Nicholson's won that edge back row spot. Hosking played lock before he got injured, and I think that's hurt Starling. Starling played a bit of lock minutes in the first 2 weeks, and you've seen the last 2 games, he's 53, 56 minutes. I wouldn't hate getting off early.
Yeah.
You go, mate.
I think you're right, but I don't think that's anytime soon. Like we did see Hosking play that lock role in against the Broncos before he got injured, and I think you're right with Matty Nicholson. He's kind of won that jersey. I didn't jump on him because I didn't think he'd be playing 80 minutes, and whether or not the rotations have helped him actually play 80, or whether or not it's Ricky Stewart saying like you're our guy. I still think he'll get eased in, Hosking, when he comes back. So there's just too many mouths to feed in that forward pack. But luckily, Owen Paddy is a very young kid. Like I think he's 19 or 20. So Starling will still see majority of the minutes. It's just Eddie's right. Like when do you get off? Not if.
I don't think it matters too much whether Hosking starts at 13 or edge, because I think that between the 2 Englishmen and Hosking, they're just going to take up all of the minutes of one of those edges and the 13. So I don't. Either way, I don't think Starling's going to end up with getting significant minutes at 13.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think maybe a week or 2 more on Starling is my take on it. Not really that much else relevant between the 2 teams. Smithies returns for the Raiders, which takes up some more middle minutes. Ethan Strange, I wish he'd passed Tamale the fucking ball. He had to do it all himself last week. Kind of saved his score. He was in for another stinker. At what point do you start to worry about Tamale as a player in your 17? Let me preface that.
I think
I'm
he's
starting
fine.
to worry about that.
Yeah. I think he's fine for now. I think this week him playing in the first game helps. You can loop potentially if you've got a
Yeah.
Warrior or Gilbert, and I think it's a free loop. But I'm probably more confident in playing him than a lot of these other outside backs because he's proved he's got the fantasy relevant game. It's just you're right, Jay-Z, about Strange not passing him the ball. All of his fantasy points are coming from when he gets a kick return or on play two. And he's got the tackle breaks and offloads when he gets the chance, but he's not getting actually any good ball. I think for now his break even's still only 16, so that 50 really prolongs him in our sides. And while his price is moving up, you're not really going to be wanting to sit a 450 to 500k guy in your emergencies anyway. So I think when the time comes that you're less confident in actually playing him, it's probably time to move on and keep the cash generation flowing, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am playing him in my emergencies this week. I am using him as a looper, though, to be fair. He's the sort of player that it's best when he's in the first loop spot for you, so that because he's a guy that I think he's going to be able to score 15 or 50 on any given week, depending on if he gets a try or not. I think he will struggle a little bit in games without tries at the moment with the lack of ball that we're talking about, but I think he's still good as a looper, and yeah, obviously in your squad, we just keep holding him until he's at threat of losing money, and that's not this week. But yeah, I'm not shit hot on starting him every week anymore. I think there's going to be some not so nice scores in there sometimes.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think Cronulla are one of the trickier matchups for outside backs.
I tend to agree.
One of the best back five in the competition. Not a lot of relevance at Cronulla. Cameron McInnes is playing some pretty big minutes. I know there were a few injuries last week, but averaging 58. He's at a pretty ugly price, but one to keep an eye on perhaps if he starts playing 60 plus at lock.
Yeah, I actually owned him all year last year. Like I started with him on like the captain narrative, similar to why I picked Gilbert and Fisher Harris this year. That captain narrative, new captain equals more fantasy points. But yeah, I actually held him all year. I just never traded him in the early rounds, and then he was a stalwart in my side pretty much the entire year, which is hectic. As the only player that I didn't trade out the whole year.
Legend.
I was the same with Perez.
Yeah, I had Kiraz from round 2 till 27, I think. Yeah, it served me pretty well. Anything else on this game before we move on?
Nah.
Sweet. First of our Friday doubleheader, we have the struggling Penrith Panthers taking on a Cowboys side who's just racked up their first win of the year. Probably the player to talk about here is Tom Jenkins. There's a lot of discourse around him this week. What's your view on this, Eddie?
Yeah, I'm onto it. Winger fullback's not the easiest position, so it's nice to have the latest cow coming through. His big score last week's guaranteed to sort of get his money rolling. That he's got a -4 break even right now, and 53 with no tries. That's pretty nice. And I do think they're going to fucking torch up the Cowboys this week. So I'm playing him in my 17 over Tamale this week.
That's
Won't
pretty
necessarily do it
spicy.
Doesn't mean I'll be doing it every week, but it's a better matchup. And his stats are pretty nice. If you look at his stat line, how he got his points, like made quite a lot of tackles, made a good amount of run meters, randomly 3 offloads. I don't know that he'll be getting that all the time, but sort of for a centre, like that's pretty nice base stats. It was like 160 meters and yeah, like 23 tackles or some shit. If he can go close to those numbers on base every week, I'll be chuffed.
Yeah, it's
That's
kind of
what Marley doesn't have.
It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, he played fullback the week before, right? And his numbers are almost better across the park at centre. Like, he's run for 170 metres in the centre game, 3 offloads, couple of tackle busts, 0 tackle busts at fullback, interestingly enough.
It was like a KL Iro stat line.
Yeah, the white Kale Iro, who was fucking hopeless when he played for the Knights. I think it's better having him in the centres than on the wing as well. Like, just having those tackles probably helps with his floor a bit. Like, if you look at his history, he's got a few real low games on the wing, which aren't too impressive.
I definitely don't want him to play on the wing.
I wonder if there's any temptation for them to do a late swap with Casey and him maybe swapping between wing and centre. It's funny. Basically, all the players in this Penrith backline can play centre at some point. Mitch, you indulging on a bit of Tom Jenkins?
Yeah, mate. With that 53 in his rolling average, he's pretty much primed to make 100k now, even if he just, skates his way to some 30s and mid 30s. I think the most encouraging thing about his stat line is the tackles, and he actually does have the mindset to offload. I was watching him pretty closely because a few people that I'm friends with picked him up, and anytime he got the ball, he looked dangerous, but he wanted to offload, and it's actually pretty funny. He had got that penalty, and that penalty should have actually been a turnover. But there was they got the wrong call, so that's a 6-point swing right there. So he could have really been looking at like a 60 or a really high, 59 type score with if that play was the correct call. So yeah, I'm bringing him in this week. I'm flicking Iongi to him. Iongi's dead to me. And I'm just going to keep the cash gen flowing. I'm actually going to play him as well, I think. I agree with Eddie. I think Penrith are going to put, close to 40 points from the Cowboys, and surely he's going to see some of it. So yeah, I'll be playing him, and I'm pretty excited to bring him in.
The Cowboys are fucked when even Thorsky's given up on them.
Yeah, he's pretty one-eyed. Now, gents, this is probably the question of the week for me, and I think this round is basically the breaking point of the season. There are 3 players that I see as viable captaincy options, and the first one plays in this game. Nathan Cleary on return from a HIA. Either of you captaining him?
No, I got the VC juice on them though.
Bit of inspiration.
Terrell May's been doing fucking me strong, and I don't need to turn on him. And until I see Cleary as prime Cleary, which could well happen this week, I'll just, until further notice, keep it on May. I think May seems to have a very high minute floor, so it's a very safe large score.
Yeah, and I brought in Payne Haas last week, obviously, and it wasn't ideal. It was torrential rain, and he could only throw one offload. So I'm gonna bank on making him the captain, and hopefully it's a dry Suncorp field, and he can throw some offloads. So I'll doing the same as Eddie and throwing the VC on him and captaining Payne Haas.
Yeah, love it. I am captaining Cleary. I'll say this now. He burnt me once this season.
Yeah, that's good.
He's burnt me once this season, but he's going to pay me back kindly in this game, I think. Penrith really, really struggling. Horrible game last week against South Sydney. And obviously Cleary was out. Tolau basically did nothing. So it's kind of on him to turn their fortunes around. And I expect a real big game from Nathan. Wouldn't surprise me if he got at least one try. Maybe I'm just making this narrative up in my head, but I think he's a really solid option against a really weak Cowboys side outside of
North Queensland. Definitely a solid option. Absolutely a solid option. And it's time for him to show all the retards that sold him. Just don't do that shit.
Yeah. Oh, mate, how good would 100 look this week?
Next week is going to be a fly.
2 options in Penrith's forward pack. We got Lindsay Smith, who's basically proving himself to be a gun keeper, and Isaiah Papali'i gets his first start of the year. Any interest in either of these blokes?
iPad, because he's just renting a spot, isn't he?
Sorensen's out with a HIA.
Yeah, I wouldn't go near iPad until he's got a lockdown spot that I like. And Lindsay, he's like 650 now, though, eh?
Yeah, 663.
A bit of an ugly price for him, but fuck, he's killed it to start the year. Imagine starting with him.
Yeah, he was at that 600k price point, the same as Fish and then Stefano. So you could see all 3 of them. They've all gone their own separate way. I actually don't hate Lindsay Smith. I quite like it. I was pretty keen on him at the start of the year, but I ended up going Fish. Thought it was a lot safer. I could kind of not predict, but I could see Lindsay Smith taking that next step. We didn't have really the stats to back it up, or it was just more of the eye test. Him making his debut for Australia. I know they already have Isaiah Yeo playing 80, and that's non-negotiable that he plays 80 minutes. But I think they sort of need him on the field as long as possible. And I can kind of see him playing that 60 minutes, on a regular basis. I know they have a lot of mouths to feed, but I think he's pretty important to that side, and they haven't been winning games. Penrith have started super, super poorly. So I actually don't hate him, but just at that price point, you can do so much with that.
Yeah.
So
He's
I'd
averaging
probably
50, he's averaging 56 minutes. I do wonder if it's a little bit purple patch though, because his PPM is up significantly compared to what it was last year and all previous years. So I
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
at the price,
He's
I'd
feeling
probably
a
look at
little
a
bit full
different
price.
direction. But I
Yeah.
just as an actual, Lindsay Smith himself, like I think he's a fine option, and he'll have these big games. Like he started off the bench last week, and when he got subbed on, he was in the Toby Couchman role. He just didn't leave the field, so which I think is really good. And yeah, he played really well. He physically passed the eye test, but I just think at that price point, you've got guys coming down that who have got more value, and I'd probably take a leap of faith onto those guys because you don't really want 2 or 3 Penrith players in your side too, especially when their buy comes around.
Yeah, well, he's priced at 49, and that is more than he averaged last year by 4 points. So yeah, it is pretty expensive.
Yeah, fair shout there. I think for me, he might be a buy if he misses the Origin team. Probably not at this point of the season. I think we saw him and Leon Henry's numbers really explode over Origin last year. I think there was a couple of 70-plus scores from both of them, maybe 80 minutes from Lindsay in a few games. So I'd say a couple of these Penrith guys are just wait till Origin comes around and see if they're not picked.
Yeah.
With the Cowboys, you'd be pretty stoked if you held Purdue. He actually looks like a footballer these last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
actually
bit
own him.
surprised.
I own him. I held him through those first few weeks. I didn't play him. I actually took his score last week over Katoga, which hindsight's not great, but a safe 36 is better than a 5-minute HIA kind of thing. But yeah, a week's a pretty long time in fantasy, and he's looking like a great shout now. Not to buy, I don't think, but just to actually sit down
No.
in spot 21. With a 2 break even, if he can get a couple more 30s, he can scrape to 400k, which is pretty hectic at that price.
Yeah, he's had a good last couple of games. I do still think he'll have quite a lot of really shit scores because he is still a small centre on a
Yeah,
pretty
he
fucking
looks
poor
like a bit of a
team.
weapon though. Like last week, I watched against the Broncos because I obviously support the Broncos, so I watched the game closely. He did get bailed out a bit really early on. He had a pretty lengthy line break and like one of the first time the Cows had the ball, and then he obviously had the 90-meter like rundown try, so that boosted him up. But last week against the Raiders, he actually looked like a bit of a weapon. Like they actually gave him early ball, and he looked like a bit of an asset out there. Like they were targeting him early ball, which I don't mind. Against Penrith though, you want nothing to do with playing him this week. And I would, like I said earlier, I wouldn't go buying him, but just to have him in spot 21, I think he's going to make a little bit more cash, which is really good. It's looking a lot better than it was a few weeks ago, which is really good.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to have in your 21 spot making cash. But no, I wouldn't buy him. And I think there's better cashies this week to bring
Yeah,
in.
100%.
But if you own him, you're loving it.
Definitely. Nice bounce back game for whichever Bateman owners we still have around. You'd be pretty spewing if you traded him out last week.
You would.
Cool. So now a game where I think everyone's going to have about 6 million fantasy players. We have the old classic, the Bunnies taking on the Roosters in Friday night footy. Where to start on this one? The 2 Rooster centres have held their spots. Billy Smith's still lurking in the reserves, but not 18th man this week. Either of you starting to worry about these guys? They both posted pretty decent scores last week.
No, I'm not worried.
Yeah, no, Rob Toyer still has a break even of 17, so he's still got lots of cash to make. He's scoring, high 30s with if he's not getting that big attacking stat game. So, yeah, no, I'm comfortably holding him, and I wouldn't trade him until he gets dropped.
They're both doing their job, averaging pretty well. If they get dropped, then I'll drop them. But in the meantime, just keep ticking along.
Okay.
Nawa's break even 17 as well.
So, interesting question, because I think this also comes into why this week is so important, is who do you play? We've got so many centres. We've got Katonga, we've got Star Toa, we've got Rob Toyer and Mark Nwanganito-Arce, and Tamale for that matter, really. Who do you play? Who are your 2 starting centres this week? Is there any fear that we're coming up against Latrell Mitchell and Jack Wyden, these are pretty bad matchups for both of the Rooster centres?
So it's not that bad of a matchup for Nawa, is it? Who's he matching up against?
That'll be
Jack
Oh,
Wyden.
Campbell Graham. Oh, Jack Wyden. Oh, that's not the worst.
I think he's one
Tall
of the
could be an
better
issue.
defensive centers in the comp.
He misses his fair share of tackles. He's certainly a brave physical defender though. I've actually at the moment I've got Toya sitting in my 19th man spot. That's actually who I'm looping with Tamale as it stands. I'm playing in my winger fullbacks. I've got Garrick, Jenkins, and Campbell starting, and I've got Nawa and Howarth starting in the centres. That's how I've got it currently.
We'll get to Howarth in a bit, mate. I'm sure you've got a few choice words for him. How about yourself, Mitch? Do you have both guys, just one of them? Are you playing either?
Yeah, so at the start of the week, I was just playing Rob Toya, but with the Latrell news, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. I really don't. Latrell's first game back, I think he's going to be a bit of a liability in defense. So as much as you can be worried for Toya coming up against Latrell, I also think it's going to have its pros. At the moment, my centers are Staff Toa and Katoga, who I brought in last week. And I think it's going to entirely depend on what Tamale scores. If Tamale scores well enough in the loop slot, then I'll probably not take Rob Toya. But if he scores a bit of a dud score, I'll end up taking him. I actually don't see Latrell as too big of a worry, but I am playing Jenkins over all of them in the wing fullback slot, so it's probably not ideal either. But yeah, I'm comfortable with playing Rob Toya. He's doing a job, and he's definitely one of the guys that in a few weeks' time will be upgraded to a gun, which is pretty exciting. But for now, you just keep riding the wave because he should score a lot higher than his break even.
Yeah. To be fair as well, the decision for me is tight. Like, I don't think there's too much between
No, not at all.
Toya, Jenkins, and Nawa. So it's just the way I'm leaning at the moment. But there's not really a wrong.
Yeah, if I owned a
way to do
Wanganita
that.
I would definitely play him. He's got the fantasy relevant game. He's got like that Reece Walsh effect where you watch him if you don't check the scores, and he looks like he's going to be on for like a 50 because he offloads, he breaks tackles, he's in everything. And then you check
He's
the
fun.
scores, and it's like, oh, okay, how is he only on a 35? So I think for that alone, he's a bit of a weapon out there. So I'd probably play him if I owned him. And again, he's just I would play him personally, I think.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's always one big play away from a breakout score.
That's right. I feel like it's got to be around the corner. One game he's just got to get like a double fucking.
Because he keeps
and
scoring
a
tries
couple of
early as
line
well. Like he'll
breaks
score a try in the first 20 minutes, and you think, yeah, okay, like shit, I don't own him. He's going to go big. And you check the scores, and it's like a 37. And like, oh, how has that happened? Because he looks so dangerous. He throws 2 or 3 offloads, breaks tackles.
I just swear I could feel there's a game coming up where he gets
Yeah.
a couple of tries, couple of line breaks, 6 tackle busts, a couple of offloads to hand, and it's fucking on.
I kind of feel like this might be the game. Like the Roosters
Maybe.
have some real bad matchups coming after South Sydney this week. They play, I think, Penrith and the Broncos in back-to-back games. So it's probably now or never for a breakout game for Marky Mark. Another Rooster who we all own, Sandon Smith. I'm actually really high on trading him out this week. Thoughts?
You could if you didn't have any bigger problems. Break even's still 23, so the only problem with trading him out now is if he goes in and bangs out another 40 plus score, that's like another 43, like that's another 20 plus K, and then his break even drops down a bit lower. So I think it's probably a week premature, but if you've really got no one better to trade out, then that'd be fine. I'm holding him and trading out Brimo because fuck Brimo.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I actually agree. If you look at his stats last game, he scored 20, which is really bad. But he had 5 errors, and I think two of those errors were like pretty close to being like try scoring opportunities or try assists. That 20 could quite easily be a 50, if that makes sense. Like I know it's a big jump, but he had a few big plays because I was watching him closely because I actually had to play him, and yeah, he was looking on for a mammoth score, and then it would get pulled back for a forward pass, or he was in front of the kicker, or something would happen, which is pretty frustrating. I think
Yeah.
if you don't have bigger problems, I think he's fine. You can take your 130K and run. But I think, like Eddie said, if he scores a 37 to 40, it's a decent score. You might be able to take this week, and he's gonna keep the price moving as well. And So I think it's team dependent as well. We have a few cashies popping up, and if you need someone to go down to keep the cash going, I think it's fine. But maybe it's a week too early. But I see the vision.
Yeah, well, the thing is, his average is 36 and his break even's 23. And generally, I wouldn't like to sell a player that's got a break even that's 13 points lower than his average.
Yeah, I guess my counterpoint to that is that includes 2 tries. He's got a 20 and a 32 in his last 2 games, and while I agree with you, Mitch, I think he was a couple of plays, like maybe a pass off another try assist, and he looks dangerous on the field. It's just the base isn't there. And while South, I think, is a fine matchup for him, the next 2 weeks are going to be, admittedly, those are the 2 games he scored a try in earlier in the season, but I think they're much tougher games. I don't think Penrith are going to let in 38 points again against the Roosters.
Yeah, I think he's a fine target. Well, I'm banking a lot of cash this week, going the double cheapy route with Gilbert. And I think he's a fine target in the next week or two to just launch in and get, turn Sandon into any gun that I want in the game, really, or go Sandon to a 700k guy and someone else to another 680. So I think he's fine to trade out now. I think he's fine to hold. Ideally, you probably don't want to play him. So I think with the Warriors buy, I think it's pretty easy if you have a chance to not play him. So I think it's entirely team dependent on that one.
If he does get a crappy score this week, I'd say he'll be one of the most traded out players next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Including my own team.
Yep.
Somehow there are still more fantasy relevant players in this Roosters side. Let's lump these 2 together. If you don't have Naf White or Siwa Wong, any interest this week? I know you've been talking about White quite heavily this week, Eddie. A lot of regret from not buying him, but you're considering trading him in?
Yeah, so I guess the reason I didn't get him last week was I sort of was a bit, I guess, partially salty about the fact that he cost so much more than he was when I
everybody
should
else
have
picked
bought
him
him.
up, yeah.
But then I was looking at it more, and it's like, well, hold up a second. Am I just disregarding someone just because they're not as cheap as they were? Like, this guy is averaging 56.5. He's got 50 plus the last 3 games in a row, with 2 of them being over 60. He's got a low score of 43. He passes the eye test. His stat line looks fucking nice. He's got DPP. He plays in all of the major buy rounds. At 575, is he just is he a 50 average guy that's still under 600k that plays all 3 buys and his DPP? That's quite a lot of boxes ticked there still, right?
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I'm also like
Tend
you.
to
I just
agree.
find it so hard to just force myself to buy him when everybody else picked him up at 415k or whatever the number was. I had him in my preseason.
Yeah, that's what I'm
he
salty
was in
about. Yeah,
6 or 7 of my preseason serious drafts, and now he's at this price.
same.
I just think it's the minutes. I think he played 58 into 57, and then when all the troops came back, he dropped down to 50. He just played 25 minutes, came back on for the last 25, and he had maybe a career game, maybe. He was a weapon out there. He was easily one of the best players on the field. In a losing side, and I just think with his minutes going down, with all the troops coming back, is he still a buy? There's definitely he could be, and he probably still is. I don't know if I would pull the trigger. I think that's just me being stubborn, though, knowing everybody picked him up at 415k, and I'd have to buy him at this price. At this price, I'd rather go to a Couchman, or I'd rather go the double cheapy route, bank a lot of cash, and then pick up maybe a Britton Nickera when he bottoms out in a few weeks, or a Hamole, or something down that route, instead of going Nafahu at this price. That's just me personally, but I do think there's still a world where he is a buy.
Couchman's the alternative that I've sort of been comparing him up with, who I'm also interested in. But why is Couchman better than him?
I just, obviously, without having the stats in front of me, I just think there's a world where he is their forward leader now, in a sense. Not obviously alpha male, but I think he's their young guy, young ascending player. He's surrounded in a forward pack full of old duds, really, besides those 2 young kids on the bench. And I just think there's a world where he does average 55 plus minutes, especially now, Emre Gula is out of the side, suspended. He's
Okay,
going
so
to
you
be
think he's going to
starting.
play 5 more minutes than White is basically the difference, you think?
Yeah, I don't see White's minutes maintaining. Like I think now Radley's obviously out this week, but I think now that all the Lindsay Collins is back, all these other guys, Butcher, I think his minutes is kind of capped, and he might have these games. Victor Radley always goes down with a HIA, so he has the route to play long minutes, but I think Couchman will do it more consistently. I think that 44 minutes was a bit of a blip on the radar. I think you'll see him come out this week. I mean, he could even play 60 minutes. Like he could even play 60 straight. We saw him round one, he played 70 minutes, with a PPM was a bit below par, still a great score. And then 60 and 62 minutes, like I could see that being the norm, really. Like there's nothing in that score where he was pretty much all base. So I would go Couchman over White personally. But I think a big reason is also, like I said, White started at 415k and he's already made all this cash. So I'm pretty stubborn in that sense that it just would feel so gross.
Yeah, I know. I've got I get the same feelings, but I'm trying to question it and think like, am I just writing him off just because of that?
Yeah, that's I think that's completely normal to do as well. Similar to Wong, there's a world where Wong is also still a raging buy if he averages 51, but just knowing he's 160k more expensive it just makes it sound super gross when you say it out loud.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ridley's real salty at me because I talked him out of buying him last week. Well, I didn't really think he was going to maintain his spot, and now like Radley's
No,
gone
nobody
down,
did
and
though. That's the thing. Nobody thought that. So
yeah,
it's like that's why no one picked him up, because if we knew he was the back row and that Butcher didn't exist or whoever, then I'm sure everybody would have started with him or picked him up after his first big score. But now he's gone 50, 50, 50. It makes it hard.
and
There's like he,
he still might not end up being the starter when
yeah, like
Radley's back.
exactly. So, but I mean, with Butcher on the bench at lock this week, I believe, and then Radley coming back, maybe they've just accepted the fact Suo Wong is the edge now, and he does have this spot locked down. Priced at 51. I'm not priced at 51. Sorry,
Priced at
averaging
38.
51. With
He's
that
priced at
average, he
38.
still has plenty of cash to make, and he's not really doing anything out of the ordinary to score what he's scoring. He's making a lot of tackles, has some offloads, but that's the type of player he is. So I'd probably rather buy Suo Wong over Nafahu White personally if I was to buy one. But again, I probably don't think I could do it because he's already made all this cash.
yeah, pretty fair points you make. I'm probably, and this might seem a bit controversial or anti against the pack. I actually don't think any of these guys are buys. I have my doubts over Naf White maintaining his PPM. I have my doubts over Siwa Wong holding his role, and I also think there's just such a large margin for error with Toby Couchman minutes, because as you saw, a HIA, which is a pretty common occurrence in rugby league, it may have impacted his minutes on the weekend, and he only played 44 minutes. And while he did have a monstrous base game, I think that's something that could happen fairly often. With Gula out, I mean, I look at their team lists, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but it kind of seems like the same team, except Clemmer's going to play 50 minutes instead of Gula. And Blake Laurie's going to be that 20-minute starting prop. Naf White seems the most likely of the three, in my opinion, to maintain that role, just because, I mean, he looks so good on the field. Like you said, I think that game against
Absolutely.
the Titans was maybe a career best game for him. He really led and had an absolute blinder, whereas Spencer Leniu backed up a 50 with 16 points. So, yeah, I don't mind White, and his DPP is very handy. But I wouldn't be touching Siwa Wong. He only played 66 minutes on the weekend as well, in Wong's case. So
And there's probably a world too where with the Roosters tough draw, we don't expect him to be a top 8 side or even a good side at all. That Robbo does change everything. He's got a multitude of forwards who can play middle, back row, bench. Like his forwards can do anything. There's a world where he decides that Lindsay Collins, Spencer are going to start. Butcher to the edge, Radley to
No,
lock, and
no,
then
no, no, no.
obviously is that going to happen? Probably not. But also there's a world
What
where
you
that does happen.
what you just suggested is what would happen if Neff wasn't the best player in the pack at
Oh,
the
I'm
moment.
agreeing with you. I think he is the best player in the
yeah,
Robinson's
forward
not
pack. But
Robinson's not going to turn around and be like, you know what, I need to do? I need to drop White to the
you know
bench.
what?
Like,
I agree
no,
that he shouldn't do that, and it would be super
he
dumb.
won't.
But I also think that there is a world where that probably could happen. It's pretty slim, but I think while we're bringing these guys up, it's pretty good to also mention that as well, because you and me and the casual audience can say that Naf's been their best player because it's pretty true. But also, if Robbo was to just go, no, you're back to the bench, we need Lindsay and Spencer to start, like, I could see him actually doing that as well.
Tell you what, though, Mitch, the moment you use the term, well, there's a world, I basically tune
absolutely.
out.
You know what? Yeah,
I
that's
tune out
true.
when someone says that, because that tells me that's not what you think's going to happen, and you're worried about alternate scenarios, and I don't like to do that shit.
That's a really good point too. I think it's just important to mention it as well, in the sense of like, okay, maybe this is something that you should have in these conversations when thinking about buying a guy, and it kind of just adds to the con list in a sense, whether or not it's minimal or highly. I'm just saying, if Naf started from the bench next week, I could be like, yeah, I could see why he would do that, because it's Trent Robertson.
I mean, I think case in point is Terrell May last season, right? He played 50 minutes the first 4 weeks. Round 5, he played 20 minutes against the Bulldogs and scored 23 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
quite clearly
pretty
one of the best forwards on their team, who is now an 80-minute front rower for the Tigers.
One of the best forwards in the comp, let alone on their team. So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, could we have expected that last year? Like, not at all. That's why we all jumped on him. But hindsight's a pretty funny thing. I don't think it's happening. I don't think it will happen. But even Wong could quite easily end up on the bench next week, because Butcher could be
Wong
Wong
definitely could.
And that's why, like, I think they're probably not similar in that sense, but also you can kind of bunch them together. They've got Linu, they've got Lindsay Collins. They're not great forwards. I think Naf White is 3 times better than the both of them. But also,
Linu is never going to be the big minute guy. Never has been, never will be. It's not his wheelhouse.
I think another thing that we're not mentioning is the return of Connor Watson. And I know him and Victor Radley have not played, well, they've played in the same game, but Radley got a head knock 20 minutes in. They haven't played in the same game together, and they're both massive minute guys, especially if Connor Watson's going to move to lock. I think that might hurt White's minutes, and that's why I just don't think any of these guys are buyers. They may well could be, and there's every chance that White averages 50 plus. But for me, I think the downside's just a little too real. Like, we've seen Robinson fuck us over before. If you started with him, you're fucking flying, ride that out until he milk it for all you've got, basically. But I wouldn't be jumping on them now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cool. We've talked about the Roosters for a while. They are playing another team in this game. The return of Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. It's almost a fantasy player's wet dream. Maybe he gets center DPP. Maybe he loses a stack of cash and then gets still position and moves back to fullback. One to keep an eye on. Hopefully he has a good game and doesn't get re-injured. Mamazelos keeps trucking on like the little hooker that could. Unfortunate sin bin cost him a 50-point game. And the return of the hub, Lachlan Hubner. Did you guys both hold on to him the last 2 weeks?
Fucking oath, mate.
Yeah, of course.
Any concerns over his minutes this week? I think they've named basically a 3 middle forward bench with Jaden Sullivan. And if the Humphreys to lock experiment continues, his minutes might be limited. I'm not playing him personally. Either of you considering putting him in your 17?
I haven't decided yet, but I'm considering it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put him in my 17. I think it was round 2.
I am leaning that way.
Yeah, I didn't play him in round 2, and he went pretty much at a PPM. He went like 50 in like 50 minutes or whatever it was. I don't have it up in front of me, but he was just in everything. And I think he's going to, considering I'm going pretty cheapy heavy with, 400k in the bank, I'm going to have to play some of these guys. And I just feel more comfortable playing, if he gets 50 minutes, we know he can play 60. He did it in round 1. I don't know if that happens or not, but he's kind of showed that he can score relatively well. And, if he scores a 40, then I'll happily take that over one of these, cheapy centers. So for now, he's in the 17, but I kind of see why you also wouldn't, which makes sense.
Yeah, what you said.
Do we think Latrell takes goal kicking off Humphreys?
What sort of clip has Humphreys been going at?
Pretty good.
He's been killing it. Like, I actually started with Humphreys in round 1. It's probably one of the best things I've done. And yeah, he's been unreal. Like, in-play kicking alone, like, and actually goal kicking, like, I'd probably lean to no. I think they'd ease Latrell back. They've put him at center. I don't know if he keeps the goal kicking.
What was the injury again?
Hammy, yeah.
Yeah, it was a high-grade hamstring, I think. So I doubt if Humphries was kicking super shit, then maybe he would get it back. But I don't think so. I think they're going to leave it to Humphries. He's doing everything. He's playing halfback for 60 minutes, then moving to lock to make 40 tackles. Like, I think they've got a perfectly good goal kicker there. So I definitely think Humphries will keep it.
Hopefully, Trell is the sort of player that could fucking walk in and walk back in and command the tee, fucking be like, "Hey, over here, I'm doing it," and he's got the sort of power to pull that.
I think being at centre helps him not do that, and I think it helps the Rabbitohs and fantasy coaches owning Humphries. Just because I think putting him at centre shows that he's, if I know they've got a lot of injuries in the backs, but I think it shows that we've got Jai Gray here who's he's leading the Dally M count, but Wayne Bennett will kind of say we've got Jai Gray, he's been our best player or second best player. We're going to ease you back in. Maybe they're just using the excuse of okay, we've got a lot of injuries. Latrell can fill a gap. They could pull any center or winger. They could play Fletcher Myers on the wing or Isaiah Tass. They have plenty of those guys. I think it's more of a tactic, not to the media, but probably in the four walls of South to say no. We want Jai Gray playing at fullback. We want him in the side. You can't put him at 14, so he has to play fullback. And Latrell's the best center in the comp when he wants to be. I know it was a few years ago, but
he's not going to be fit either.
No, absolutely not. And they've got Jai Gray.
He's had a hamstring injury for the last 6 weeks or whatever the fuck it's been.
Yeah, I think
he's going to be overweight and he's going to be unfit when it comes to playing fullback anyway, where you need to be covering a bit of ground.
Long term, he'll be the fullback. Of course, he's the best fullback at the club. But I think short term, they're winning games. They beat Penrith. They pumped them. I think Jai Gray is their fullback, and Latrell will be eased in. I think Humphries will keep the goal kicking. I'm pretty confident in it.
Hopefully. If it wasn't a hamstring injury, then I'd assume Trell was getting it back. If Trell was coming back from a head knock or something, he'd be taking the boot. But hamstring is one they might want to look after. They are pretty niggly for redoing them, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty high chance of re-injury. Look at Turbo and things like that.
Yeah, genuine concerns. I do think that Latrell could actually really hurt Humphries, maybe not in the short term, as Mitch is saying, but last year he was putting a lot of kicks in, a lot of sort of midfield bombs and punts and the like.
At one point he was doing 300 kick meters a game. I do think that was only because they didn't have any kickers in their halves. Whiten and Walker's the worst fucking kicking halves combo in the comp sort of situation. So I think that might have been out of necessity more than anything.
Yeah,
potentially. You look at round one with Humphries, he kicked for 700 meters or something, and that's when everybody jumped on. And I didn't really expect that starting with Humphries, but I know a lot of people in the preseason, it was pretty silly jumping on Latrell at 800k in all their preseason drafts, expecting him to kick, and maybe he could have, but also they have a halfback now, and Humphries is doing everything. Back then, Cody Walker doesn't kick, Jack Whiten doesn't kick, so he probably had to. And yeah, he's just not going to do that in this game.
He is a left footer, yep.
He probably will come in and get 150 kick meters then.
Maybe he'll do a spiral bomb, but it's not going to be anything crazy.
Just a left foot kicking option.
Yeah, maybe 3 points a game, maybe, but I actually don't even think he will.
So think Drinkwater Walsh sort of level kicking as opposed to the 300 meters he was doing last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
That's still 4 or 5 points.
Yep. I think short term Humphries is fine, but maybe keep an eye on how Latrell impacts him. Feels like that game took half an hour to get through. So let's move on. We've got Parramatta with perhaps the cash cow of the week popping his head up, playing St. George at home. Now, if Parramatta are going to win a game anytime soon, it's probably this one. Boys, Riley Smith, are we doing it? Are we not? Mitch, what do you reckon?
I actually really like it. I think Dylan Walker will probably take minutes off him though. He's not going to play 80. I think it's the right decision to throw him in the deep end though, from a footy sense. Lussick and Hands are just rubbish. Rubbish. And Smith is obviously the future of the club in a sense. So yeah, I think he definitely is an option. I am still locking in Jenkins and Egan, I think, at this point, before we knew Smith was starting, but that could change, and maybe one of you boys could convince me on that. But I think he's a fine option, but I also think he's fine to wait a week. He won't get away from you.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'm leaning to do, just to see how it all plays out. I don't think he's playing 80, but he's definitely going to go
Nah, no
60 to
way.
65. Which with his PPM, he's going to score really well. But I think I'm going to let it through one more week and just reassess next week.
Yeah, I'm not grabbing him this week. If it was a week where there wasn't really many other cheapies, I'd heavily consider it. But his break even's higher than the others. When he got 53 and 55 minutes earlier on in the year, he got 21 and 30 in those games. So his PPM is not great. So yeah, I wouldn't mind waiting a week and seeing. And how much minutes he gets. I don't think he's going to play 65 minutes. I've got a feeling it's going to be a bit less. I think Walker's going to take quite a bit of minutes off him.
See, I kind of lean towards Walker being a bit of an insurance policy more than a hooker. Like, I think what Mitch said is probably the most likely scenario where he plays maybe 10, 15 at hooker, if he even plays hooker. It's interesting. I'm probably most tempted on Riley over Jenkins, just because I don't really need another wing fullback, and I'm not in love with Jenkins. He's a bit of a spud. Obviously, his centre stats are pretty good though.
You just don't like him because he was shit when he was at Newcastle.
No, he's just not he's not a great player. He's not exciting. Like, maybe he'll score well.
He's done pretty well everywhere apart from Newcastle.
You mean at Penrith? Where else has he been?
Yeah.
He scored 25 at fullback against the Storm with a try assist. So don't tell me he's got a fantasy pedigree. He needs tries to score well.
It's gun centre, mate. No, not gun. Actually, that's going too far. That's going too far.
His other, he got Simbin in it.
Level jersey.
Yeah, for Luga points. His only other game at centre in first grade was he got Simbin and scored 20 points. So, I don't know.
He was going to get a double in that 10-minute period he was off.
Yeah, so maybe it's a 60 average. Katonga, did you both jump on him last week? I regretfully did not.
I wish I did. I may potentially still do it this week.
Yeah. I jumped on. I brought him in for Metcalf just to free up that cash to ensure the hash trade. I think he was just the best cheapie at the time. Like, it was him or Hamish Stewart, and I just think Katoga, he was favoured in the trials. Looks like he's the 80-minute guy. I'm not expecting anything crazy, but at that price, he doesn't need to be. Like, he doesn't have to be one of these back rowers who scores, 45. Like, he can do a roll. He can make 30 tackles, miss one or two. He looks like every time he gets the ball, he looks like he's very relevant with his offloads and tackle breaks. So, yeah, I jumped on, and I'm going to be happily playing him in the centres for the foreseeable future, I think.
He looked all right.
I may jump on this week.
I'll say he looked steady is probably the way I'd describe it. He looks like someone that should be just absolutely bowling people over, but he just doesn't run the footy very much, which is probably my biggest concern with him.
I think that's Parramatta's fault, though, in a sense. Like, they just have nobody to give him good ball. Like, he's next to Dean Hawkins, who just, he's a third string half. So he's getting the Jacob Preston treatment where he's just sitting on that right side, not doing anything. And when he eventually gets past the ball, he looks to offload and tackle break. But I just think at that price, like, it's really good. I mean, it doesn't help that this week we get two really good other cheapies, and Riley Smith as well, who I wasn't even including in that. So yeah, it's pretty hard to take. He's more expensive than everybody else too. So if you don't get him, I see why. But also, I think he might score the best out of all of them. So it's you can't really lose on whoever you end up picking up.
He makes a decent amount of tackles. He seems sort of like a Kelmer, except he misses less tackles.
Yeah, well, like, that's what I mean. He made 35 and then missed
cheap.
one. Like, he doesn't at that price, he doesn't have to do a lot. Like, even if he does miss 3 or 4, like, he's still going to score you, mid 30s potentially. And the only reason why he didn't play 80 the week before was that HIA, and then he ended up coming back onto the field anyway. So I think Sean Lane, that game got taken off, and then the other day he had Sean Lane had the HIA. So I think Katoga at the moment is prioritised in the back row slot, and you don't need to hold on to him for too long anyway. Like, you just need a few more games out of him, and he'll make his 100K or so. So I think it's fine.
He might have another 150, really.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, you're going to be getting those consistent scores as well. Like, I know it's not great. Everybody, a lot of people jumped on Dylan Lucas because he was a back rower playing in the centres, and he had the keeper level scores but at that price, that's what you were paying for. You know, you've got a 300k back rower who's got a pretty relevant game in a sense. Like it's not great, but like I said before, it doesn't need to be at 300k. Like you don't have to. He doesn't have to average 45 for it to be a good bring in. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
the pros and cons of guys at that price, really.
I think I need to look at him a bit closer. I don't know what he scores like in reserve grade, but I think that
Not amazing. I think it was. I think it was about 38.
Yeah, it's not great.
that 24 and 60 minutes against the Tigers is really putting me off. And I don't need a centre. So I'll think about it. I should have traded Yongi to him last week, but for whatever reason, I still have that little spanner running around in my wing fullbacks. So yeah, one to watch for me.
To be fair on him, that was basically his debut. Well, debut like for a game where he didn't play like fucking 8 minutes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he was coming off
Which is not the
an
same.
injury too, I think, because that's why he was pulled from the trials and didn't start round one. So yeah, I think just at that price too, I think it doesn't help that we have 2 or 3 other really good cheapies. So if you don't have them, you have to make the decision on which one you actually get. I think if it was a week where we didn't have any of these other cheapies and he was an option, people would go, okay, he's a really good option, and that doesn't really change because we have 2 or 3 other cheapies. You've just got to make the decision on which one you miss out on and which 1 or 2 you actually get.
I like him more than Riley Smith.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yep, fair shout. Definitely one to consider for me. I think for me the big question this week is which cheapies are the ones that best suit my team instead of just which ones are probably going to make the most money. Like I said, I sort of have a few wing fullbacks, so maybe Jenkins isn't for me. Katonga could find his way into my team. I kind of need an edge. Certainly not
Yeah, I
writing
need
him
an
off. Do we want to talk about Toby Couchman at all, or have we sort of done that to death already?
We sort of already did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're considering buying him, you already know. Like, you don't really need to be persuaded on. You know what the pros and cons are. You know where he stands. Like, you know, you've pretty much got all the information. It's not really anything too crazy.
Pretty
Well,
fair.
Jay-Z mentioned in Discord earlier that he reckons that he might be carrying some sort of minor knee injury.
Yes, that's the mail I've gotten, is that he's playing through a very minor knee injury. Obviously, no threat to missing any games, but you can tell it's impacting him a little bit. Round 1, he had no strapping on his knee. Last 2 games, he's had it very heavily strapped, and his minutes have suffered a bit. I don't know if that's just coincidence rather than actual his injury causing him to play less minutes, but it would have me a bit nervous if I was looking to buy him. All right, and another cashy. Fucking, we got a few of them this week. Dylan Egan. Now I cannot think of a single reason to bring him in. Convince me otherwise, boys.
I'm not as hot on him as other podcasters seem to be. He got really good minutes in this game, but I don't know what his minutes are going to be going forward. I'm pretty confident they're not going to be 49, though.
Yeah,
but he does have a 2 break even.
I don't think I'm not too sure. He obviously came on and played 30 minutes in the middle, which I think is repeatable. You know, maybe it's not 30, maybe it's 20 to 25, which is fine. I don't think it needs to be 30. And then he took over from Luciano in that Raymond Fatala Mariner role where RFM was just coming on for 20 minutes. And that was literally just for Luciano. So Luciano played 80 minutes in round 2. And then in the first game and against the Storm, he played 60. So I think that that's going to continue. I think Flano doesn't see Luciano as the 80-minute edge because that's Jaden Sewer. And I think so Dylan Egan will replace him. But I think him playing 20 to 25 minutes in the middle first, in that first middle rotation, and then when Luciano gets subbed off, Dylan Egan's already on the field, and then he just moves straight out to back row, and then, you know, they've got the forward replacement for Luciano. I think that that's sustainable. I don't know if
Maybe.
Yeah, obviously it's 49 minutes and he scored 46 points. Do
Yeah.
not expect 46 points because he's not going to score that. I just think I'm not looking at the
Or play
points.
49 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the points and going, yeah, I'm getting someone who's going to average this or close to it. I'm looking at the role, thinking, okay, is 45 minutes, even 45 minutes, is that repeatable? And I think it is, because he's not doing 45
Possibly.
minutes in the middle rotation. He's doing, 20 to 25
Oh,
in
no,
that
don't
short
say
stint.
he's doing. He did once.
Yeah, he did once. Okay, yeah, that's fair. And
You're
I'm
making
looking
a
at that
huge
thinking,
assumption. Just want to put that out there.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll stand corrected on that. And that's why, like, you look at these cheapies, pros and cons, and I think that, I'm a little higher on him. And that's probably just my opinion. Like, that's just what I think and how I feel of it. Looking at that role, I know last year he was earmarked and Flano was pretty high on him. It's taken a bit of time for him to actually debut. So, whatever reason that is. And I just think, it's the safety net of knowing that he will be that edge replacement. And that, so it's not great and it could blow up, but that's just where I'm kind of leaning towards that right now. And I think I'm just on the opinion that I don't want Gilbert in my side anymore. Who can I kind of trade to keep the cash flowing? He does have that minus break even, which, I've played fantasy long enough to know that that's kind of irrelevant in a sense too. Like, that's not the be all end all. But I just think that the role that he played is sustainable. And it's something that I'm looking at going, okay, can I make a quick 100K on this? And I think I can personally. So I'm going to bite the bullet. And I haven't made any dud trades so far, and I've banked 3. So I'm looking at this going, okay, can I make a really quick, easy 100K, similar to kind of like Hamish Stewart? I know he copped a bit of an injury and all that sort of stuff, but he's made 100K, and he was just playing straight in that middle rotation. I know he was going in a PPM, so it's a little bit different, but I just think it's the safety net of knowing that he's actually a back rower as well, and hopefully he can kind of play in that middle rotation. So that's kind of where my head's at with it. It's not great, and I agree that it is risky. It's not a slam dunk. I don't think any of these cheapies are, but I think it's important to say the pros and cons, when it comes to things like this, because
Yeah.
people always have different opinions.
I will just say though, he's only played one game. Assuming he's going to be the biggest minute guy off the bench is a big assumption.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't think I'm not super uber like confident on it. I'm just looking at it going, okay, he's the Luciano replacement. Is there a role for him to play 20 to 25 in the mids first? They've got Clemmer, they've got Blake Laurie. These guys, Clemmer looks like he's in the 20-minute slot. Blake Laurie clearly isn't favored. He just played fuck all games. He's not a big minute guy anymore. And just looking at Dylan Egan's Queensland reserve grade stats, sorry, he averages 48 in 79 minutes on the back row, and that's by no means, obviously, yes, like that. I know that that's not anything, but just looking at that means is showing me that he gets into it. Like it's only like a 0.6 ppm, so it's not fantastic, but also he'll make his 34 tackles. He misses like 1 a game on average, so it's not great, but at that price, I think I see an avenue for him to make 120K, give or take. So that's what I'm going to jump at. But the cons are obviously there, and that they're also a real chance of it failing as well. So I'm just a little higher on him. The way I'm talking sounds like I'm gonna fucking captain him, but I just think he's a really good bring in to help me make some future trades. I can stash him in 20. Purdue 21, him at 20, keep making that cash, and then I can flick these other guys on to guns. So that's where I stand with it. I won't be playing him, of course, but you don't, everyone you bring in, you don't obviously have to play. So
No,
that's where my head's at with it.
no.
It's pretty fair. I mean, the next couple rounds are a few irrelevant teams on the bye, really. So it's not as big a worry as last week, for instance, when everyone had 2 Newcastle players and Hubner was suspended, and so you were forced into playing guys like Sandon Smith, who scored 20 points, and you kind of just had to cop it. So yeah, I like the comment about stashing Purdue and Egan in 2021 and just kind of hoping that they don't not make any money.
Like I'm not saying that they're definitely going to work. Like they're not one of we knew Sandon Smith was going to make the money when we started with him. Tom Duffy, there was we were pretty confident. I'm not like super confident on these guys, but for the way I want to go with my team stash, 400K, I like him. I think there's a world where I know I said that again, but he's definitely going to score close to 30, and that's going to make the cash. So yeah, it's not great, but it's also, it's a cheapie, and it's all about that cash generation in these early rounds. And
Yeah, he could score. Yeah, I could see him averaging 30.
Yeah,
and
that's
at
probably fair.
260k, that's pretty prime. I'm not bringing him in expecting him 50 minutes and scoring 42. Like, that's ridiculous. But he's that 40 last week really helped push and nudge his break even in the right direction for buyers, and I think that definitely helps a little bit too. So.
I think he's actually a decent option. I just think Kautoga and Jenkins I'd have ahead of him.
Yeah, no, I actually agree. If I didn't already own Katoga, I would buy him instead. But because I bought Katoga last week, I already
And you're
have him.
getting
So
Jenkins
and I'm
already.
getting Jenkins, so it just makes sense to own all three. But
It
if
does,
you're not
yeah.
in that position,
Yeah.
then I probably would have Egan last personally.
Yeah, I get it. I might leave. I probably would consider the same thing if I was in your position. That makes sense.
Yep, good shout. Hamish Stewart came off with a bit of a suspected facial fracture. He's been cleared and named. I wonder if that played any role in Egan getting extra minutes. We won't really know until this week, but definitely not a bad option for Egan. But I think we spent enough time talking about that shit fest. On to the Titans and Dolphins, and I mean, there's not too much to be said about these two teams. I think everyone knows what JC is. Probably the hottest topic here is AJ Brimson. Eddy, I know you're ready to punt him into the moon, but
off he fucks.
Off he fucks. 2 tries, 48 points. It's not a great image, is it? Especially when one was a big tackle busting play.
Yeah. See, this was his last chance to show me something, and at first glance you think, 49, sweet, he showed me. No, he fucking didn't. He got 2 tries to get a 49. Like, for him to do what I wanted him to do and need him to do. The 2 games when he gets 2 tries need to be the games when he gets like 70 to make up for the shit ones. So the good ones aren't supposed to be 49. If the good ones are only 49 and the shit ones are 13, it doesn't fucking work for me. I've given him a chance. He hasn't done it. Outside of the 2 tries, his stat line was fucking, again, not particularly impressive. He's not running the ball fuck all. He hasn't even cleared 90 run meters in any of the games, missing heaps of tackles. Not only has he not made money, he's gone slightly backwards. He's gone backwards. Not even slightly, he's gone a bit backwards. Well, am I just going to sit there holding him all season going, I think he'll come right, like other people are saying? Nah. I need action and I need it now.
That's fair. It's a good matchup for him. The Dolphins not exactly defensive powerhouses.
Oh, fucking none of the games have been that fucking hard and he's done fuck all.
Any alter opinion, Mitch?
No, I actually don't own Brimson. I was pretty pissed off when he scored those 2 tries because I was really hoping he went low. But yeah, I would sell him. If I owned Brimson, I would be selling Gilbert and Brimson. So I think he's a raging sell. He's just missing so many tackles and he's not actually doing anything on the field as well. Like, his base is pretty low. You'd think he'd be running the ball a lot. Just the missed tackles is pretty crazy. This whole season he's made 53, but he has 28 in negatives in tackles alone. So yeah, he's a raging sell. I'd fuck him off too.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I don't see where the points that I need from him are going to come from.
Yeah.
It basically relies on him just turning his form around immediately in a big way, and I'm not waiting on that. Anyway, that's enough on him.
Yeah. Titans have 2 cheapies in Jalen DeGroot and Tony Francis, but they both kind of suck ass. Wouldn't touch either of them, especially with all the cheapies on offer.
All of the cheapies we talked about previously are ahead of those 2. Enough said.
Gilbert out this week for the Dolphins. That sees Connolly Lemuelu come in on an edge. I don't know how to feel about Gilbert. I'm pretty convinced he is just a trade, but I'm probably holding him this week because I'm trading in 2 cheapies regardless, and it lets me loop because I have no warriors. As I mentioned before,
who are the 2 guys you would trade out then?
Sandon and Iongi.
I'd trade out Gilbert before I trade out. Well, I am trading out Gilbert before I trade out Sandon. Sandon hopefully make a little bit of money. Gilbert's not. Gilbert's fucking gay.
Yeah, but I'd rather have the ability to loop so I could potentially avoid.
I think it's because we own Fisher Harris, so we actually
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
chance to
that's
loop.
true.
And then because
that's
if
true.
you had 21 green dots, I'd probably lean to hold. But yeah, Gilbert is on. I couldn't even say it in a nice way on the YouTube video I did. It was Gilbert's dead to me. He's watching him on the edge is so bad. Like he even had that line break in the first set that the Dolphins had the ball, and it gave me a bit of shining light that
not
he was
an
going to score
edge.
well. He's not. He's a. You saw him in round one. Like he's a hungry middle who's gonna just be a dog, right? And that's what you want. Like he made. Obviously, I started with him, so I didn't bring him in after the 65. But watching him in round one was so good because he was the third man in every single tackle, and he got the point for it. But watching him on an edge, he still does the exact same thing where he dives at the legs, he runs out and tries to put a shot on and inspire his team. But it's dud for fantasy. And I'm not looking at the stats or the analysis on why he's a hold or what's going on. As long as he's on an edge, he's going to miss 5-6 tackles a game. And I'm just going to take the 60K and run.
He sucks as an edge because the problem he gets the worst of both worlds because his tackling style he just misses even more tackles on the edge. But not only that, he's on attack as an edge. He is a complete plotter that will get no points. He can't get many meters on the edge. He's not going to break many tackles and stuff. He's dead set plottery, and the only way you can get good points out of him is if he spends significant time in the middle. He's had his chance. Fucking, he's had one good game, and that was fucking in round one. Now it's round 5, and he's suspended. Nah, fuck him, gone.
Yeah, fair enough. If I had someone to loop, he would probably certainly be gone for me as well. I don't really think there's anyone else worth talking about. Herbie will be a trade-in at some point when you are flush with cash. Absolutely killing it in a horror side. Probably same with Bo Firma. Not a lot else to talk about here.
The price is just too expensive, yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to put we'll keep a real close watch on David Fafita. When he starts playing, I don't even know about 80 minutes, but 60 minutes plus is probably when I'd start looking at him. If he gets into 500 territory, especially, I think 60 minutes is probably enough to fork out a pretty nice average.
I've got a fat star on him. He's definitely break even about 67 to 70. So even if he has like one more 40 in him, he's still going to lose 30K, and his break even will average out. I've got a lot of cash in the bank, and I'm really looking heavily on him. He won't play Origin as much as he should or wants to, or whatever that reason is. He won't play Origin. So at that price as well, like he's, the term, he can average 60 gets thrown around quite a lot in fantasy.
I bet he fucking doesn't know.
And that he probably won't, but I'm not even going to say the words. But let me just say, Fafita absolutely is one of the guys who can average 60. So getting him at such a big discount, it's massive chuck a star on. Even if he's starting on the bench, he has a 5 in front of his price. I think I have to jump on.
What I want to see is him starting and have a break even that's lower than 55. That would be what would tell me that it's time to go.
You and everybody else, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Beautiful. On to the next game. We've got two absolute fantasy titans going head-to-head. Jack Gajewski and Luke Laualii for the Tigers. No, of course, we're talking about Terrell May and Payne Haas going head-to-head. The two undisputed best fantasy captaincy options over the first 4 rounds. Now, you guys have already spoken to who you're captaining. I probably lean towards May. Oh, no, I don't even know. Haas playing 67 minutes a game is just crazy. But I do think they might actually hurt each other a bit in this game. They're both so good. Neither of them miss tackles. They might just run at each other all night. It could be a real, as Beluga and the kids say, eat off.
No, Beluga always says that. Eats everything. Is Beluga a fat kid?
I don't know. He keeps talking about going to the gym. So,
he's always talking about fucking eating too.
I think we've probably got some of the worst back rowers of all time starting in this game. We've got Jack Gajewski, Brendan Piakura, Alex Seyfarth, Kobe Hetherington, and Alex Twile.
That's fucking rank, eh?
It's pretty bad.
The Broncos edge combination in particular, like there'll be no fucking surprises where the fucking Tigers are going to be trying to attack.
Yeah, it's pretty hard as a Broncos fan too. Like Jordan Ricky is okay, not fantasy wise, but in real life wise, like he's a pretty decent player. But Pia Cora and Jack Gajewski as our like backup slash that's other edges, like it's so hard to watch. Like Gajewski is so useless, and Pia Cora is probably even worse. Like last year, owning him was just so hard, and I held for like 3 or 4 weeks too. It was just yeah, he's such a dud. I think
Because
the
worse
interesting
than
thing with Payne Haas is obviously the minutes that he's been playing, but I've told a few people that they're going to come down as well. And I think everybody actually, like, generally expects that as well. If you look at round 1 and 2, Paddy Carrigan was playing those big minutes, like, 67 into 66. And then Payne Haas was 49 into 57. And they're pretty much going to swap the roles. Like the last 2 weeks, Payne Haas has played the, 40 minutes straight, come on for like, 10 to 15 minutes, have a 6 to 7 minute break or whatever the number is, and then comes back on. And him and Paddy Carrigan will change roles. Like they'll swap that position. That won't always be Payne Haas, and I'm sure everybody obviously knows that. But people who are expecting Payne Haas to be this 70-minute player, it's not going to happen. He obviously doesn't need it to as well. Like don't get me wrong, he did the first 2 games, and with the way he's offloading, he doesn't need to be playing 70 minutes to get these elite scores. But I would not be surprised if he comes back and plays 50 minutes this week, 55 minutes. Like it's a real possibility after being hammered 70 minutes back-to-back weeks. So I wouldn't count on Haas playing 70 minutes because it probably won't happen this week.
I think it depends on what the score is. Fucking when he's on his break. Like if he is a 35-minute first stint, and by that point the Broncos are up by like 20 points or something, I don't see any particular reason why they'd give him another 35-minute stint. So it's just going to be game dependent. But then he might just fucking load up on attack and get points. I think at the end of the day, both May and Haas are going to be awesome as fucking regardless of their minutes, and any one of them could do better on any given week. So just follow your gut. Fucking, there's no real point in looking at numbers of these two.
No, definitely not. And I think there's something to be said about the consistency of Terrell May. And again, how the fuck the Roosters let him walk is probably one of the worst decisions of all time. Just absolutely killing it for the Tigers. Now, let me toss up Reece Walsh to you boys. He hasn't really had a good game yet.
Sucks.
He looked all right in the pouring rain against the Dolphins. 33 points. It's not excellent. He's a bit reliant on tries, but we know he can score them. When do you start considering him as a buy?
When he starts playing well.
Yeah, I think his break even 62, so he absolutely has the ability to crush that. But even then, like, Reece is, I think last year he had 1 try a game on average, and he's a type of player similar to Tom Trbojevic, where his base just isn't that great. And with the amount of errors he makes, which we know will happen, he'll score 2 tries, have 2 try assists, break 10 tackles, and he'll score like a 60. And if Kalen Ponga did that, he's going to ton up. So I think if Reece Walsh, and when he has a 4 in front of his price, it's going to be pretty hard to ignore. And that's just the way
Probably
it is
next
for me.
week.
For me, I think, whether or not I do it next week or not, I don't. At this stage, he won't be playing Origin. I know he's one of Billy Slater's favourites, but he won't be playing Origin. Kalen Ponga will have that jersey, and Reece is not a 14. So I doubt he actually makes the side at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he will either.
And
not
I'm the biggest Broncos fan ever, and yeah, he's not playing great. I would say take that -1 out of his game, but you can't.
It happened.
It happened, and he does, throw up a 7 in 80 or a 10 score. So I think Ben Hunt coming in and not Ezra Mam is playing a part in that as well. He's being a lot less dominant on that left-hand side where Ezra Mam would normally be. So I think if he has a 4, and when he has a 4, it's going to be hard to ignore, even though the stats won't back it up. But yeah, just leave him for another week and just wait and see.
I'd want his break even to be like fucking get down to like 40 or something, because he needs to show me that he's worth picking in my team. Currently, the shitty guys I've got, like Nawa and
Yeah, Stafford Toll is
from the
scoring way more than
Raiders.
he is. So it's
Like,
what's
yeah,
the point?
Yeah, like he's not outscoring any of my backs at the moment. And then he needs to fucking show me that he's worth buying. Like, sure, he's cheap, but he's only cheap because he's shit at the moment. He hasn't scored a 50 yet. He's only gone above fucking 40 once. Like, he needs to do something first.
Oh, pretty fair. For me,
He's averaging 29.
one of the big reasons why I'm not super keen on Jenkins is the prospect of having Reece Walsh. Maybe not this week. I'm still considering it. But
Definitely not this week.
Nah,
I
I do this week.
this is me.
No
It's how
way.
I play fantasy. I'm considering trading him in this week.
No, don't. Go with your cheapies, bro. That
You
sucks.
don't have to bring Jenkins in to play him as well. Like you can bring Jenkins in to make the 100k and sit in emergencies. Like you don't like I'm bringing him in. It just so happens to be that I'm playing him. Like the favorable matchup. Like if he was against Storm in Melbourne, like obviously he did that a few weeks ago, but I probably wouldn't play him. But he's playing the Cows. Cleary's back. They're playing bad. Like he's going to launch. So like next week I probably won't play him. So yeah, you can bring him in to not play him. But yeah, I think Walsh, like when he's priced at like 480 or something, 490, yeah, it's gonna be. It's just hard to ignore. It's one of those ones like it is what it is really. Like you kind of throw the stats in the bin and go, well, Reece Walsh at this price is pretty tough to ignore.
Yeah,
Wait for his
fair
break even
enough.
to fucking drop at least. With his
It's not.
current form, paying for a 63 break even, that's insane, bro. That's like double. That's more than double his average.
Sure. The concern of me with getting Jenkins isn't that I have to play him, because I wouldn't be playing him. Maybe this week I would, but it's more that I would then have 6 wing fullbacks, which is far too many wing fullbacks for my liking.
Yeah.
So it's more of a team composition thing than it is anything else. It's you got to pick the players that are right for your team, and I am pretty high on Walsh. Might not be the week I do it, but I'm genuinely considering it.
He can absolutely score above it though, like 62. Like I know he's been playing pretty poor football wise and fantasy wise, but he could absolutely crush that 62, or maybe not crush it, but he could easily score it.
Yeah,
Or he could just keep getting 30s.
Yeah,
like he
well,
has been.
yeah. You'll know after they play Saturday night if it was the right decision or not. So
yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool. Anyone else in this game worth talking about? Latu Fainu starting at 7. I mean, if there's any merit to Luai's shoulder injury being worse than what the Tigers are saying it is, then maybe he's someone we can look at.
Worry about that next week. See, get some more information. See how he goes this week.
yeah.
Yep. I think everyone else is pretty much the ship has sailed.
It's
Yeah.
too late on Stafford.
Hope Jack Gajewski dies so we can all buy Brendan Piakura again.
There'll be a time when we'll buy him at that price. He'll eventually start. He's going to be 230k, give or take, and there's we're gonna end up buying him. I'm telling you
Who's
now.
that? Sorry.
Piakura.
Piakura. Okay.
Yeah, there probably will be. I'll worry about that another week though.
Cool. So, on to apparently Manly play at Four Pines every fucking game because we've got another game at Four Pines Park. Manly playing the Storm. A bit of the wind's been taken out of this game, in my opinion. Tom Trbojevic being injured, Hughes being out, and the Daly Cherry Evans bullshit that's lingering around the club. It's not a fantastic fantasy game. Like, obviously, there are relevant players in Ruben Garrick and your Cameron Munsters and Pappenhausens.
It's not a good matchup for Garrick, though.
I don't think it's a good matchup for any of these players. Melbourne games have kind of turned into shitfests a bit, especially from a fantasy perspective. The ball seems to be out of play a lot because they chance their hand a bit more than other sides do. So they do make more errors or score more tries, so the ball's out of play a bit more often. Is there anyone worth talking about in these two teams? Obviously, you've got your boy Jack Howarth, who's killing it for you, Eddie.
Yeah, I'm pissed off. I'm going to hold him because I've got faith he comes good, but yeah, no, I'm not loving him at the moment. He's pissing me off.
I don't think there's much to be said about this game, really. Nathan Brown starting at prop. Did he start there last week?
No, I was off the bench. I
Did Tuck
think
start?
who's out? Josh Aloy has got an AC joint, so he'll start.
Yeah, probably not one worth
Pretty
considering.
stock standard. You're not really buying anyone in this, especially Manly side. You either have Garrick, you started with him and you're happy with where he's at, but you're not buying him now. His good runs come to an end, and Manly have had that Newcastle 2023 draw where they just played Newcastle every single game for the last 15 weeks. So yeah, Garrick, his base at 4 Pines is like plus 30 in goals. So I've started with him and I'm really happy with it. So it's a bit of a season play with Garrick. Like I just put him in
Yeah,
there,
I started with him too.
put him in the wing fullbacks and then move him to centre later. Even if he scores 30, I'm not fussed at all because the big scores are coming like it was in round 2 or 3, that 90. So yeah, I wouldn't be buying anyone though. It's Manly side's a bit of a dud team.
Harry Grant, same argument as Reece Walsh, really. When do you start looking at him as a buy?
Yeah, at that price, 666 on the dot, that's really, really cheap. I think the days of Harry Grant being like a 60 guy is over. Like he's just not
So
that
do
guy
I.
anymore. I think he can average, like he's averaging 45 now. That's a little bit irrelevant. I think if he cleans the missed tackles up, he can average in the, maybe 54, 55. I just don't think Harry Grant's that guy anymore. He just the way he tackled, like the bit of Reed Marnie where he just misses so many that he can't really make it up. He's not like Connor Watson where he'll make 50 and miss one. That's why we all started with
Yeah.
him. So I think he's still a fine option. Obviously, we'll play Origin. I think he's fine. Like obviously, there's some people who play head to head, and I think he's brilliant for that. He actually doesn't miss a head to head fixture. But for overall coaches, I'd probably just lean to. We've got Mamazula still in the job. I'm more than happy to run with just him for now and reassess later. I think.
I mean, if you for whatever reason need a hooker, then yeah, I'd be happy to buy him. But I doubt many people were particularly in the market for a 660k hooker right now is the only thing though. But the
Yeah.
price is fine. I think he'll probably bounce back and average sort of, I don't know, 52, 53 sort of thing. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, the days of him being like a 60-point play, just forget about that shit. That's not what he's done for a while, and it doesn't appear like it's going to be what he's going to be doing. The position in general has dropped off. Nobody apart from Watson's doing that shit.
Yeah, the hooker strat is dead. It was dead a few years ago. So, I
Yeah.
think everyone's got Mamazoulis. Riley Smith is a probable viable option in the next 2 weeks. So, plays Origin. I just say ignore it for now.
Riley Smith and him wouldn't play the same role in your team, though. No one's buying
Oh no,
like
absolutely not.
like one's a starting hooker and the other is not.
Yeah.
Well, they're both starting hookers now, mate.
Yeah, I mean fantasy in a fantasy team, one's a starting hooker and the other is not.
You never know, mate. You never know. Let's keep an eye on that para game. All right. To end the round, we have the undefeated Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Newcastle Knights. Leo Thompson back for the Knights. Tom Cant has held his spot on the edge. Obviously, both back rowers out at the moment. Is there a chance that he stays on the left edge when Kai Pearce-Paul is back? Do you guys think?
There's a chance, I just have no idea, and I don't like to pay that sort of 50-50 gamble with a 500k player.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
fair shout. Look, I'm a Nui fan. I probably lean towards Frizzell moving to an edge once Pearce-Paul's back. Well, he's already on an edge, but him moving to the left, or maybe even Pearce-Paul playing on the left. He played there last season. I think he's a bit of a trap, is my view. But I mean, sometimes weird shit happens in fantasy, and picks that don't make sense end up working out big time. So proceed with caution would be my two, Bob.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely proceed with caution. I'm not like high on him. Like I don't want to use the word high. Like I think he's great, but I tend to think Frizzell is more of a middle now. Like obviously you're a Knights fan, so you know the inner sanctum more than I would. But I just don't think like Frizzell's like 34. They've got KPP and Dylan Lucas as their gun edges, and obviously Lucas is injured. Tom Cant did a really good job. Obviously, they didn't win the game, so that's that means a little bit. Maybe it means a lot. Maybe it means a little. I think he will hold the spot personally. I wouldn't take into account the 76 that he scored. Like that's kind of irrelevant now. Look past that. Yeah, made 50 tackles, ran for 100 and something meters. Had 2 offloads from memory. but he has a really good reserve grade average in big minutes. So if he keeps the spot, you're going to look like a genius, and you're going to make. I think if he keeps the spot, it's a much better decision than buying Matty Nicholson. Like I think he's a much better version of Matty Nicholson.
Well,
But
Matty Nicholson's not going to make 56 tackles.
yeah, and we just don't know if he keeps the role. I'm inclined to think Frizzell will move back to the middle, but again, I'm not too sure. And if Frizzell does start at the edge and he's on the bench, then it's a bit of a dud pick. So I
I
would,
think it's 50-50.
yeah, I would probably, if like it's something I would do, but I wouldn't advise people to also follow and do it. Like I think it's a risk that I would take personally. And I think if it works, you're going to look like a genius. And if not, then you've wasted a trade. So, but he will get a really good score this week. Like he's going to go 50 plus this week. So
Yeah. Frizzell's being played in the middle this year, but I wouldn't say that Newcastle have decided he's a middle. I think it was they were happy to move him to middle because they wanted to start KPP and Lucas. I think they're happy to probably play Frizzell wherever fits best. Frizzell
for the
is
team.
more than capable to continue playing on the edge fast. He might be 34, but like he's still fucking
He's a dog.
pretty nimble quality
Yeah,
player.
he's a
Yeah.
weapon. Like he's a really good player. It comes back to the Dylan Egan thing.
He's a good 34. It's like
Oh,
Billy Jerry
absolutely.
Evans is
I
a
think
good
he's a really
36.
good player. There's pros and cons to it. Like it's not as I think it's probably lean towards no, but also like if it's something that I'm willing to do, then yeah, I probably do have to speak about the pros for it because I have no doubt in my mind he's going to go 50 plus this week. But is that enough long term?
Probably.
Probably maybe if he keeps the spot, it will be absolutely. But then again, if he's back to the bench, it's a dud pick. So yeah, I'd probably lean with caution. But if it's something that I'm
What
willing
is
to do,
he
then
average in reserve grade? Is he a
so
fucking weapon in reserve grade?
so I just had it pulled up. I think it was 47 in 74 minutes on an
Oh,
Pretty-
I don't think
pretty
you can be
solid.
shocked. I don't think you can be sure he goes 50 plus then.
No, I'm not like one. Like I'm just saying it more for like myself. That I'm not telling the world that he's going to do it. I personally think he's going
He
50
might.
plus. So like
Fair
that's just so I'm not advising like Payne Haas will go 60 plus. Yes, I'm also saying like I think that he's going to go 50 plus. So
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fair. I mean, he's had one reserve grade game this season for an 81. So, mate, he's having a good year so far.
yeah, and then if you look at it, he actually did score 76. So I said ignore it, but also like clearly it's in his range of outcomes. He didn't have many crazy attacking stats, 50 tackles, 140 meters. Like that's pretty insane. So you probably have to bring it up in a sense, but yeah, proceed with caution because if he's back to the bench, then yeah, everybody told you so. It's a dud pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a flip of the coin. It's either going to pay off big or it's going to be dud, and nobody can really tell you which way that coin's going to land.
For
No
sure.
podcasting can.
So one he's interesting because his lowest score of the year involved a try, and the 2 weeks since he's gone 60 plus for a 61 average. Wing fullback Fletcher Sharp is absolutely killing it for the Knights. Looks unreal at 5'8". It's pretty hard to chase him. I'll say that. But is there any world where he keeps up 50 plus average?
I would lean to no. If Newcastle
Surely he falls back to
they've had the softest draw, and if you actually look at his stats, like look how many attacking stats he actually has in his game. Like look, he doesn't kick the ball. So he's got 2 kick meters, 36 kick meters, and 0 kick meters in 3 games. So he's got 1 point in every game he's played in kick meters, and just look at the amount of attacking stats he has. Maybe I'd lean to offloads being in his base. Some players you can do that, and he looks like he's going to offload the ball. But he's made line breaks in every game. He's making a stack of tackles. He's busting. His lowest tackle break numbers were 5 in games, and he's just having so much attacking stats in their soft draw that when it eases up, I just don't see that being sustainable. At that price too, 644. Like I'd rather go a Drinkwater or a Teddy who's a little bit more expensive. Like they're genuine guns who have done it for a while. Fletcher Sharp's played 3 games and his side has bullied these shit sides. So I'd say no. The ship has sailed.
Yeah, I don't think he can maintain it. He's priced at 48. I expect him to come back down to earth a bit. So I think you're pretty close on paying full price on this one.
Teddy 20k more, give or take. Like, you know who you're picking every day of the week.
Yeah,
I'm a bit
he
cold on
is
Teddy.
fucking killing it.
I think he's really struggling along with the Roosters. Like I watched that game against the Titans and I thought, holy shit, Teddy's got to be on 70 plus here. He was on 48. I feel like he had
Yeah.
6 line breaks in that game.
It's like that fullback base, like they do so much, and you're looking. If you don't check the score, you're like, yeah, he could be on 70 here. Turbo, Reece Walsh, Teddy to a lesser degree, but yeah, it's just that base. Campbell and Ponga are going to kick the shit out of the ball and kick goals and all that sort of stuff. So it definitely helps. I think Teddy's going to be a must come Origin time anyway if he doesn't make the side. So whenever you get him in, I think everybody will own him at some point. It just depends when you do it. If you pull the trigger early, wait till they buy, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and there's no rush.
Yeah, I think
He's not
round
getting in a
8
hurry.
looks like a real good week to bring
Yeah, I was just
Teddy in.
more so comparing the two. Like, it's good to talk about Fletcher Sharp, bring his stats up because it does look appealing, like having a 61 average. But if you take everything into account, and then on top of that, you look Tedesco is 20k more. Yeah, okay, it puts it into perspective a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you wanted a gun winger fullback this week and you've already got JC, I wouldn't talk you out of Tedesco though. But
I wouldn't either. I
he's
think
not.
he's the best out of them for me, personally.
He's not a red hot. He's not a red hot buy yet though.
Nah.
Yeah, it's a
Yep.
reasonable price.
Fair call. Who else we got here? Jacob Preston. He has just been killing it the last few weeks on the field, in fantasy, basically everywhere. This guy, what a weapon. Honestly, like he was such a big reason why they beat Cronulla last week. A big upset too. And so I think that's a thing that you need to call out when we're talking about Newcastle attacking players this week. A bit concerned about Greg scoring well against the Dogs. Ponga as well. You'd have your doubts. I'll be at this game, so hopefully we don't get belted. But the Dogs look really good in defence. Do we all have Greg here?
Nah,
I don't. I have Ponga. That's all.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
got no nuts.
No Knights. Wow, no wonder
I
you
used
rank
to
so
have
terribly.
Lucas. Well, I had Lucas and then he got hurt. I was
No.
gutted as about that.
Fair enough. This is probably the last week of Bailey Hayward before they have a bye and he's back.
Just on Preston. Preston's in the pile of guys that I'm considering buying this week actually.
Even with the bye next week?
Yeah, I'm aware of the bye next week, but I don't have any other Bulldogs, so having a loop is not the worst thing in the world. And I don't think he'll make Origin, which means he'll play every single major bye round. I think he's only going to get more expensive from here. Like you could wait another week, but if he goes and gets a 65, he's going to be another 30k expensive than he is right now.
Yeah, I actually agree. Normally, I don't really like buying players with buys like 1 or 2 weeks ahead. Like, I hate that. But I think Preston is a pretty niche, like someone who you can't put into that category just because I don't think anybody else has any dogs. Like, we just don't have any Bulldogs. So if you can
Yeah.
get Preston this week and he does score 60, he's going to make another 30k. And buying him at 740k, give or take, is a bit gross compared to buying him at 707k. And then next week, we have a bunch of keepies, a bunch of guys who can go 40 plus. If you have the chance to loop while everybody has 21 green dots, I think that's a massive advantage heading into next week. So I think it's one of the pretty rare examples where I don't hate it. And I think Preston's. I know you're pretty keen on Couch and White. I actually think Preston is better than all of them, and I don't think it's close personally.
I agree with that.
Well, yeah, I certainly think he's going to out-average them all. He does also cost more, but I guess what it comes down to is, do I want to get him or do I want to go double cheapies? Because the thing is, if I go double cheapies, thinking I want to make the most of the price increases, well, that's somewhat offset if Preston goes and makes 30k in the meantime, so I haven't really saved anything then. So maybe I should just get him.
Yeah, but
I'd have to pass on
you're kind of
Caltoga
banking
then.
on him. Like, I know he scored that try, had an offload try assist as well with 2 line breaks. So he didn't have a stealing game because I think he can definitely have more of a stealing game. And he had the most amount of obviously he scored 122 run meters in the first game, but the 2 games before last he ran for 90 meters and 60. Now he's going to be on the left, and he traditionally does score a lot better on the left, and Bulldogs are far more dominant on the left. So you could probably make the most of him being a buy this week. I just think yeah, it's pretty tricky, and you're kind of banking on him scoring like hoping he goes 60 plus to make it worthwhile, maybe, or like a 55, which he should do. He more
I
than
think he
capable
will.
should
Yeah.
do. But if he goes low, which obviously hindsight's pretty a funny thing, then the double cheapy strap probably would have been better, but you just won't know that until Sunday
No.
night 8 p.m.
No,
So
you never know.
yeah, I'm going the double cheapy route, but I actually really like Preston. I'll probably be targeting him after the bye. I think he's one of the keepers who I'm going to pick and stick and then just hold all year, because he's going to give you some really, really big ceiling games, and his base is like 50. His floor is 50.
Yeah.
So
People keep talking about how it's only if he's on the left edge. It's not good on the right edge. Didn't he play right edge last year? And like when he played over 60 minutes, he averaged 57.
yeah, Kickow is their left edge player. I don't have the stats or anything in front of me to show.
Yeah.
Kickow has always been on the
Well,
left of
so
Birdo.
that means Preston had a massive average last week on the right edge, like 57 plus sort of situation.
Yeah, so I think people just look into the numbers too much, really. Like, and even last week, you look at Preston, he made 31 tackles. That's down. Like, he normally will make close to 40. So you can definitely exchange some of the stats. Like, he's not going to have a try every week, but he's a try scoring back rower. Like, that's the upside with him. Like, he is that type
Yeah,
of
he does get
player.
tries.
And he doesn't really offload, but he'll make high 30s to 40 tackles, and it's the run meters. If he can get anywhere near 100 run meters, he is pretty close to averaging 60. So it just depends if he gets the ball. Like, he just gets starved with the ball on the right. On the left, he'll definitely get it,
Well,
but
no,
on the right side, he's
does
just
he get? Does he? That's what I just said though. Like, does he get starved on the right? Because as I said last year, he got plenty of fucking ball on the right. Is it just for a game or two this year on the right he's been starved? Like, again, we don't want to make assumptions just based on one game. Like,
I think every time I think of Preston, I always go back to that trial against the Broncos. But in one high, obviously it's a trial, but it's what we have in front of us. He had 50 in base at half time, because he made
that's
like
rude, eh?
at half
It's so
time he made
fucking
like
rude.
36 tackles, few tackle breaks, and 100 meters. Like, that's the Preston that is, yep, get him in, because he is elite, and that's what he can be, and that's what he is. So I think he's a great shout. Like, I can't quite afford it. I think with Gilbert I can go 639K and cheaper, and that's why I'm going the double cheapy route, because anybody in that price point I don't like. But if I could go Preston this week, with being able to loop next week, I think is going to be massive. I would probably pull the trigger on that personally, I think.
I still might.
Yeah, I don't hate that. That's some good chat. Yeah, Preston rules. He's very good. Not much else to talk about in this game, really. It's all a
I
bit
think
shit.
we're about done.
maybe read Marnie in a couple of weeks right before Origin. Even though he's... What's the opposite of training the house down? He's shitting the bed, I guess you'd say.
The annual Reed Marnie bring in happens every year.
Just being a shit cunt.
Well, Wade Egan was in my team at one point last year, so I'm not averse to a shit hooker that actually stays on the field.
450K or something. So I don't hate, like, if Reed Marnie got that low, it's similar to Reece Walsh. At what point do you just go, okay, I've got to do it at this price?
But
Yeah.
it seems like he's devolving as well. Like, usually he starts the season real hot and then sort of fades as he gets knocked around as the season goes on. This year he's one up that by being a shit cunt right from the get go.
Like, if I'm trading out Gilbert because I hate watching him miss tackles, then it would make me a pretty silly person to bring in Reed. He's missed 7, 6, 8, 6. That's bad. Like, that's gross. So
I don't
That's
like
pretty
him either.
bad.
I don't like him either. He's one of those maggoty little players that takes advantage of the fact that players can't punch you anymore and just sort of acts like a mouthy little fuckwit that needs a fucking punch to the dome, but he'll mouth off knowing that he can't do anything about it. I hate cunts like that.
yeah, I think too with Reed, like, you always, when you don't own him, you look at his price and go, yeah, like, there's value, like, it's tempting. But when you own him, like, I remember last year I owned Reed and Starling.
Yeah,
They were my
same.
two hookers, and
It
it was so deflating, and it was horrible. Like, even like Damien Cook at the time was killing it, and I had to watch Reed Marnie and just pray to God he missed 5 tackles, because if he didn't miss 5, he was going to miss 10. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what stopped me from finishing higher than 21st, because I owned Reed. And it was, yeah, I even told myself I'm never buying him again. I don't care what price he gets to. But you seem to forget about that when you see him. If he gets a 4 in front of his price, it's going to be pretty hard to forget that. So
Yeah,
I'll forget it for now.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think pay closer attention once we get a bit closer to Origin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I buy Reed as an Origin hooker, I'll be doing it in round 12 and not before.
Yeah. I got
100%.
fucking murdered last year for trading in Kohler like a week before the buy round started, and then he got injured the next week and didn't play any of the buy rounds.
That fullback game, was it? When he
Yeah.
went to fullback? Yeah.
Did his MCL or something the first game and just he was. I think I traded him in twice last year, and fuck, what a shitter. All right.
I really learned last year as well that don't go too hard on like trading in suboptimal fucking buy coverage guys.
Yeah, just because they're cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, and then then you end up running low out of trades, and you just end up getting stuck with guys in your final team that you don't really want to be there.
Yeah, you try to gaslight yourself saying, oh, like, he can, if he scores 47, it can compete. And you look at all the top teams and they've just got like 20 straight, like elite guns too. And that's what cooks your season, bringing in too many of those duds.
Yeah, that's what guys like Preston become so valuable is fucking they play all the major buy rounds and they're actually the motherfuckers you want to own.
Yeah, that's honestly why I started with like Hopgood and Garrick, because Hopgood, like, I was like, he's got a little bit of value. I can hold him all year. He's got the duel. Garrick, like, even if he scores 35, like, it's irrelevant to me. Like, I get the big scores, I get the little scores. He's there all year, so there's a bit of merit to that strategy.
For sure.
All right, well we've been on for probably about long enough now. What do you boys reckon?
Yeah, I can't believe I've had to listen to your dribble for an hour and 45 minutes, Eddie, but it's been a pleasure as always. Mitch, thank you for coming on.
Well and truly due a tone.
I had a ton of fun jumping on, making the debut. I had so heaps of fun. Yep, that's probably why I went for ages, because I can talk some shit about useless players like fucking Dylan Egan. So there you go.
Oh, we always go for fucking ages.
Too long, some might say, but no, great effort, mate. Hopefully we have you back on. Yeah, to all our listeners, if you're still here for whatever reason, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow for our Wednesday pod. Cheers.
Yep.